Okay, so this is my final showcase, showcase number 3, and that is the showcase on the computational thinking. So I'm going to dive right into it here. I use the little example thing here as my little outline. So the lesson plan is completely asynchronous. So when I chose for this to be a good asynchronous lesson plan is the 50 states on a map and the 50 state capitals. So the measurable specific learning outcomes to start with are students will be able to identify all 50 US states on a map, and then they will be able to know the capital of all 50 US states. And then next up, my learning management system. I went with Canvas for this one. I didn't really have a lot of experience with Canvas, which is kind of why I went with it. I wanted to have some experience with it. I've used Google Classroom before, and I've used Canvas as a student, but I've never been on the teaching side. I gotta say, I like it, but it feels like it's more geared towards high school and higher education. In the future, I would not use it for an elementary school type lesson like this, but it worked out in the end. But overall, it's more geared towards higher education, but I did like it. It's user friendly for the teacher at least. And then the additional tools that students will have to use is Quizlet. There's a 50 states Quizlet that I kind of based this around. Let me find the other teacher who wrote it to give them credit on Quizlet here. We'll find it in a second. But it's very good, and it's kind of one of the things I like about it is it's accessible. I know I've talked before about the cliche, everybody uses a Quizlet, but I'm starting to see why. They're very solid items. You can use them for formative or summative assessment. It is something where you have a premium feature on it, but it's not too terribly expensive. I didn't personally buy the premium version for this lesson plan, but if I were a teacher, it wouldn't be a huge deal for me just to buy the premium subscription to be able to make and use lesson plans easier. And I think that's something you could possibly even get your district to fund. So I will engage learners by using a Quizlet to allow them to learn asynchronously. So Quizlet is a great tool, I think, for asynchronous learning. Because this is an asynchronous lesson, I feel like you would want something in person or synchronous to build up to it. You know, you would want to introduce, okay, here's the lesson, the 50 states. That's something that students should have seen in class already, if I can go back here. Yeah. So that's something where you're going to start the lesson in class, but you can definitely finish it asynchronously, is kind of what I figured I'd do here. And then again, Quizlet will help the learners set goals. So it's a formative assessment tool. So they can go through the flashcards and see, okay, I'm able to look at this and see, I don't get this. I don't remember this state. I don't remember this capital. This outline's hard for me. This lesson, it's geared towards third graders, but I feel like this is also something some states teach towards fourth grade. I based it heavily off of, let me find the lesson here. This lesson here by someone named Alyssa Foster. It's from the Arkansas State University. So I based it loose. It's very loose with this. So theirs is kind of more intensive, but for mine, it's just they need to know the state, be able to pick it out on a map, and then know the state capital. All right, so let's roll back onto the Showcase 3 and get back on track here. Online activity, Section 2, content delivery. So what content do the students need to review to be successful? So the 50 U.S. states, the outlines of the 50 U.S. states on a map, because you can't really identify it without the outline, and then the capital cities of all 50 U.S. states, because this isn't just parroting back listing all 50 U.S. states. I mean, you can do that with enough memorization, but that doesn't actually teach them anything. The point of this is to look on a map and see, okay, there's the outline of Ohio, so I know that's Ohio, or the outline of Florida, or so on and so forth. And how I provide multiple means of representation of content. So by giving students a test that shows the outline of the state and lists the capital city. So if we can hop over to Quizlet here really quick. So the Quizlet I've got here that I base this off of, you see for Arkansas, because we know that's Arkansas, or, well, we go on to California after this, but it gives you the outline of the state here, and then the state capital here. I feel like this is very good if you have a visually impaired student, because they're not going to be able to see, okay, here's the outline of California. So, but they can connect, okay, Sacramento, I know that's California. So this kind of gives students the two different avenues and simultaneously teaches them, here's the state, here's its outline, and here's its capital. But it also kind of makes it more available to the students who might be visually impaired or any other number of things. So I really like that about this, that you're doing both at once. All right, hop back over here. So that's your different paths there to finding the correct answer, because they can look at, okay, I don't remember what the capital this goes with, but I do know that outline is Alaska, and therefore I know Juneau is the capital of Alaska. So they got those different paths to get the correct answer, and it works really good as a formative assessment tool because maybe they already know the state, but that helps them learn the capital along the way. All right, let's get on down to, come back to that, how exactly this is the computative assessment. So decomposition. So they're going to break down the set of state information into its separate parts. So let's say, pull this back up here on Quizlet. Hold on, wrong Quizlet. There we go. So let's say we're looking at this. We got Hartford. We've got our little outline there. So we know it's not Virginia, it's Connecticut. Yes, okay, there we go. But anyway, oh shoot, I forgot that. All right, so you've got the three pieces of information. You've got your state, the name of the capital city, and then the outline of the state. So they're going to break that down into the three separate parts. So kind of piecing that apart, they may have a part they don't know as well, and they're going to break it into, okay, I know this and this, so therefore I can know this. And then pattern recognition, they're going to recognize the state outlines. So looking at, okay, I know that this is this little boot-shaped state at the eastern seaboard of the United States, and it's right next to Georgia. I know that's Florida. So they're going to look at these patterns of, okay, different state outlines. I can look at which state this is. And then abstraction, they're going to filter out details on the map that don't help you identify what state you're looking at. So let's say you're looking at Alaska. You're not going to be able to say, okay, I know what state this is based off the other states that are touching it because it's not one of the 48 contiguous states. So they can filter out all the other 48 states on the map and say, I don't want to look at those. And they can filter out Hawaii too and say, okay, the only important details besides this outline are it's touching Canada. And then they can say, okay, I know because it's touching Canada, it's Alaska. Algorithmic thinking, that's the putting all the pieces of information back together in the end. So that's, like I mentioned with Florida, you say, okay, I know it's this boot-shaped state. I know it's on the eastern seaboard, and I know it's touching Louisiana. So I can put that together to identify that that is, in fact, Florida. All right. One moment here. Get back on track here. Okay, back into the assignment itself. So, like I said, I used Canvas. I said America's made up of 50 states and other territories. Well, you don't currently need to know. That says need to know. We'll fix that. Need to know the non-state U.S. territories. You should be able to identify all 50 states on a map and be able to list each state's capital. Using the Quizlet below, you'll practice the 50 states and then demonstrate your knowledge on them. And then you can visit and practice the above Quizlet. When you feel you've mastered it, take the test version in Quizlet and take a screenshot of your score. Upload your screenshot in your submission on Canvas. So I feel like this isn't really out of the realm of possibility for a third or fourth grader to ask them to take a screenshot or to navigate Quizlet. You're going to want to introduce it in the classroom first just to make sure they have a handle on it, and then you can say, okay, you can go do this asynchronously. One issue I've found, like I said, Quizlet is a paid application to an extent. So if you want to take the test, it's going to let you take the test once for free, and then you're going to need to use it as a paid software. So like I said, if you're going to use this consistently for multiple lessons, you're going to either need to purchase it for yourself or get your district to purchase it for you. That is the biggest challenge I've found so far, but overall, I like the work out of it. I like this Quizlet here, written by, pull that up here for a second. I want to give credit to the teacher who wrote this. 50 states and capitals. One moment here. Okay, HKESS3. So that's who created this. I did not create this specific Quizlet, but I used it and worked it into my lesson. So just wanted to give credit to them. But it is a great way to review the 50 states, review the capitals, and use the outlines simultaneously with the capitals to give those multiple avenues to get to the answer.